Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome once again to a Granny's house. And today I have a special guest with me. We're going to be discussing drugs. Drugs is quite an issue in our time today, and our teenagers, and many other people who feel like they have no way out of a problem they're in, and they turn to drugs. Or maybe they're in despondency and they want a high. Or maybe it's just social, thinking, well, I'm going to just experiment a little, just a little bit won't hurt. Well, my friend today, my guest, has been on drugs, and he has a wonderful testimony. And hopefully it will help you all to know there is a way. There is a way of hope. We have hope today that we don't have to go to drugs. And there's dangers in drugs, many dangers. So I want to welcome today Christopher Dawson. Christopher, welcome
Good evening,
to Granny's house.
It's a pleasure to be here, Granny.
So we're going to have a discussion and try to enlighten these people on drugs and what they can do for you and against you. Can they do anything for you, Chris?
No, not ultimately. I mean, at the time you might get a moment of satisfaction, but after that, it's gone. There's nothing left to it.
Does it have a reward?
Well, it depends on what you consider as a reward. I mean,
well, you know, even death is a reward of sin, is where
yes,
I'm coming from. So it does have a reward.
It has its rewards. I mean, now, to people here in the flesh, it might not be a reward you enjoy or like. I mean, my reward, it brought me to back to salvation, brought me back to the knowledge and to the Word of God. So, I mean, my reward from my drug abuse, I mean, my drug abuse turned out to have a happy ending, but it's up to me to make it, to keep it a happy ending. I mean, it's up to me to stay off of it.
What caused you to get on drugs, Christopher?
Well, when I was about 19, my sister, I've always looked up to her. She started smoking cigarettes, I started smoking cigarettes because she was doing so. And I noticed, you know, there were times when she would be high off of methamphetamines. And it got me thinking, hey, I wonder what it's like. And time again, I see her high, and I'd be like, be in the back of my mind wondering, well, what would it be like? I mean, would it be fun? And I know that methamphetamines helps you lose weight, and with me being overweight, I was like, well, I mean, if anything, it helped me lose a little bit of weight. And I started working started a new job, started meeting new people, and there was this guy that worked there that I got real close with, and I noticed he had bought him a new truck. He's got a baby on the way. I mean, he's always got a lot of money, and so I started hanging out with the guy, and I started noticing, hey, he's buying this new truck because he is selling drugs. He's out dealing drugs other than working his job. And that got me interested, and one day we had went to another guy that we work with. I didn't know at the time, but he was the guy who was supplying him with his drug. And so I just kind of landed into the ring of the people at my place of employment that were using drugs. And I got to know these people. I didn't start using then. And one night, a girl had invited me over to her house after work. And I went over there, and we were supposed to be drinking, getting drunk that night. And we had started drinking, and then she pulls out a bag of methamphetamines, and we both end up snorting a line. And I remember the feeling to this day. I mean, I just couldn't stop. I mean, I ended up jumping in my car and leaving, and a couple hours later, between all the booze and the drug, I had wrecked my car. Nobody got hurt, but the cops were called, and I was ended up early that morning being arrested for a DUI, which ended up causing me to spend the weekend in jail. And first time ever being in jail. Well, I had gotten out of jail that time, went back to work, and it started weighing on my mind. I was like, hey, I really liked the way that feeling was, but on the other side, I was like, well, look what happened when I used it. But I put that aside, and I was like, well, I want that feeling again. And so I got with the guy that I started hanging with, and we started getting high together. And I was never able to find that high again that I was seeking for. And it ended up going from just that one time to becoming a manufacturer of methamphetamines. I started manufacturing. I started selling. And
you told me the reason you started manufacturing, it wasn't strictly just for...
The reason I started manufacturing methamphetamines was so I could provide my drug cheaper. I mean, I didn't like having to go out and spend this money on it, so I was like, well, I could cook it. I could learn how to cook it and probably get it a lot cheaper than what I'm paying for it. And ultimately, it was, but that took me down a road that was hard to come off of.
Were you married at that time, Chris?
When I first started using, I wasn't married. Shortly after I started using, I met the woman who would later become my wife, and we were together, and she ended up getting pregnant and having our son. And I remember the day she went into labor. You know, she called me up on the phone, on my cell phone, and she said that, well, I'm on my way to the hospital. I'm going into labor. And I'm over at a friend's house with a bunch of girls. We were partying. And at the time my phone rang, and she told me that she was going into labor. Well, at that very second, I was smoking crack for the first time in my life. And that was an awkward feeling. And, well, we ended up getting into it because she was going into labor and she was interrupting my fun.
Was she on drugs?
She had been up until the pregnancy. When she got pregnant, I wouldn't give them to her. I mean, there had been times when she wanted them. I think there were a few times while she was pregnant she did use. But ultimately, she wasn't on them like I was.